Welcome to Nsnr Newsroom. I'm Dave Hill. We appreciate you joining us today in the newsroom. As another election season approaches, a lot of attention is focusing, especially since the May primary election, on voter turnout, voter engagement, the purging of voter rolls, and just the whole notion of voter education. An important organization that has long been a champion of voter education is the League of Women Voters. You've probably heard of the League. It's been around for a long time, but it's only been in the last couple of years that a Hancock County chapter has been established. And joining me to talk about the League of Women Voters of Hancock County, Indiana today are two of the main organizers of our local chapter. And I think what we're going to find going forward is that it's going to be a great idea having the League of Women Voters here in Hancock County because of the things they do to make sure that voters stay engaged. So joining me to talk about that today are Paula Vandegrift and Donna Steele, the organizers of our local chapter. Thank you, ladies, for joining me today to talk about what the League is doing. A lot of people don't know exactly what the organization does. Paulette, I'm going to start with you. Let's just dive right in. Can you just describe the role of the League of Women Voters?
Thank you, Dave. The League of Women Voters is 98 years old. In 2020, we will celebrate our 100th anniversary. We were founded after the passage of the 19th Amendment to the Constitution, and since that founding, our role has evolved over time. In the beginning, women didn't know how to vote, so the initial objective was to get women out there, get them registered, get them involved, to know what a campaign was, and to be active in the political process. The League was founded as a nonpartisan grassroots organization, and we are still that today. We operate at 3 levels: national, state, and local. And local is the grassroots, and that's where the action is. There are about 23 local leagues across the state of Indiana. We have about 1,500 members, and each operates independently. They do their own thing and their own programs. And here locally, the League has been very active since its inception in July of 2017. We've had lots of local programs, but generally we have been very active at the national level. When we were founded, we've passed several key pieces of legislation that affected women and children. At the state level, we've also been active in election law, voter rights, and currently we're working on apportionment. So
gerrymandering.
Gerrymandering, that's the term that everyone knows, but technically it's apportionment. So, and if you look at the legislative directory, and you're looking for the different things, that's where you find it, apportionment.
Under the A's.
Under the A's, not the G's, not the R's, so.
So how did the local chapter get started then?
Well, after the 2016 general election, I think women felt under attack. So as you know, in January of 2017, they marched in Washington, D.C. And after that, there was a coming together of women at a church on the north side of Indianapolis, and people were astounded at the number of women who attended that meeting. And some of those women were from Hancock County. But after a while, they decided they didn't want to drive to Indianapolis, so they organized themselves, and they were meeting on Sunday afternoons at the Greenfield Public Library. And they had all this enthusiasm, but they didn't know how to channel it. They didn't know how to organize it. And so they contacted the League of Women Voters of Indiana, and I, being a resident of Hancock County, they said, you have to go. So a board member and myself met with them on a Sunday afternoon at the library to see if, if an organization could be started here in Hancock County. And so after a few months, that group decided that that was what they wanted to do. And last July, 2017, those 6 women became 20 women, and now we're 25 women. And we were officially recognized by the League of Women Voters of Indiana in February of 2018 and by the League of Women Voters of the United States in March of 2018. So we are now a fully functioning, full-fledged League of Women Voters of Hancock County of Indiana.
And when I introduced you, what I should have said also is that you've been a member of the League of Women Voters for 40 years, since
40 years plus. I joined in 1977. I joined, I was a housewife, and I was in desperate need of adult conversation. And so I joined the League of Women Voters of Hamilton County in 1977. I served until 1995. I was on their board for all those years and held every local league position. And then I was asked to join the state board in probably 88. And I've served as their president and co-president and every other state board position probably there was at the time.
Donna Steele, you are the president of the local chapter. Can you give us an idea of what the organization has done so far? Some of the things that people may have seen happening in the community that actually are the result of what the organization has done.
Sure. I'm happy to share that information. Before I start, I want to say how grateful we are to have Paulette as our liaison to the state board. She's guided us greatly.
Thank you.
But to get back to what we've accomplished, our major accomplishment has been the jail forum, which I think really caused the conversation about the new proposed jail to bubble up. And we're quite excited about that. We had a standing room only audience, which speaks to the interest level. We've also done voter registration drives. Just recently, we did the North Street Fitness Festival, which may seem odd. What are the League of Women Voters doing at a fitness festival? Which may seem odd. What are the League of Women Voters doing at a fitness festival? But we said, exercise your right to vote, and we began our education campaign there for Real ID. So we've done a lot. We've been out in the community quite a bit.
I want to focus for a second on the jail forum. That was back in, I think March or April. As you note, standing room only audience at the library. The community hasn't tended to have a lot of community conversations like that about issues of importance, unless you go to a government meeting where it happens to be discussed. And so I've personally found that event rather extraordinary, just because of the unusualness of it. And when I said at the top that I think we're going to notice the League of Women Voters as an important educational entity, that's what I was kind of getting at, just the fact that there is now someone besides, like, for example, the newspaper, who can step forward and put on events like this and invite stakeholders into the conversation. Those conversations might not be had otherwise, right?
We agree, and we feel that that's one of our primary duties, is to inform the public. We felt, regarding the jail forum, that the public had received a lot of information from the people whose idea it is to build the jail, and we felt that it was only fair to have other stakeholders express their viewpoints. And I think it's been effective in driving the conversation forward.
I want to point out, too, that the League also helped put on the series of debates that the Leadership Hancock County group kind of catalyzed, and you guys joined in that effort, and hopefully you're going to continue to help out with that in the future.
We will definitely be either hosting debates or assisting others to host debates, especially with this upcoming primary.
So everything you do, or everything we've talked about so far, is involving education of voters. Do you have any other activities planned in terms of voter education?
We do. One I'm really excited about will kick off in 2019. We want to work with local Girl Scouts. We want them to earn their civics badges through us. We want to begin educating them about what it means to participate in your democracy at an early age. We're also, this fall, going to be starting a high school registration drive. Again, we want to empower students to not only vote, but we want to empower them to register others to vote who are their age. So and what we've decided is that anything we do, even if it's setting up a table to register voters at a local store, is going to have an educational component. We will always have information to share with people about redistricting. In 2019, we'll talk about the census, the 2020 census, and we will. That's just part of our job, is to educate.
Paulette, let me ask you, getting back to the apportionment question. How active do you think the organization is going to be in terms of pushing a strategy to end gerrymandering? It came up in the legislature this year, if I'm correct. It got batted down fairly emphatically. It didn't really go anywhere. Let's face it, there is no incentive for the legislature to take this on, right?
I think if there is going to be a reaction at the ballot box, I mean, you know, the first question I ask a candidate is, will you support a fair redistricting commission? And they get, the usual reaction is it's like, oh. But no, I think if they sense that there's going to be some kind of punishment, or they're going, you know, at the ballot box, that if they're not going to support a redistricting plan, and if the citizens get on board with redistricting, you know, that if there's a consequence, it might resonate with candidates that, okay, this is something the voters want, and I need to be on board with that. And both, to be fair, both parties have used redistricting, you know, as a tool to keep themselves in power. It's not an R issue, it's not a D issue. Both parties have done that. But what's different now is that back probably 10 or 15 years ago, the parties actually, the leaders would actually have a little dialogue among themselves. And the maps were drawn here, but now the maps are all drawn by consultants that are hired by the parties to do that. It shouldn't, I mean, in a way, the redistricting process is layered. There's the Constitution, there's federal law, there's state law, and local law, state law has a say. And then there's the Voting Rights Act. So redistricting is complicated. But in this day and age of computers, with good information, anybody should be able to draw maps, fair maps, that comply with all of those layers of law. Back in 2010, the legislature actually put computers in some public libraries across the state so that the citizens could go in and try their hand at drawing maps. But unfortunately, they didn't have all complete information to do that. The local precinct information is not available in Indiana. Some states just actually put it up so citizens can go and draw maps. But there has been a couple of cases before the Supreme Court, the Wisconsin case and the Maryland case, and unfortunately the Supreme Court punted. And just last week, the case from North Carolina was sent back to that court for reconsideration. So it's kind of a setback. I won't deny that it's kind of a setback, but the redistricting coalition that is co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Indiana and Common Cause Indiana, you know, we're pushing ahead. We'll be in the legislature again this upcoming session that starts in 2019. pushing for a nonpartisan redistricting commission to draw the maps.
Hold that thought right there. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back on the other side of that break, we're going to continue talking about the issue of apportionment, gerrymandering, and its importance to the League of Women Voters, and really its importance to voters at large, because it does go a long way toward deciding the makeup of legislatures and Congress. It's really the foundation of what voting and representative government's all about. So we'll be back in just a few seconds to continue our discussion about that, and also some of the other things that the League is involved with. Stick around, we'll be right back.
Now I can't find my toolbar. Call a Nsnr.
Find us at Nsnr Connect for safe, in-home help with your computer frustrations. Nsnr, fastest times in computer repair.
Welcome back to the newsroom. Thanks for sticking with us. We're speaking today with Paula Vandergriff and Donna Steele. They are with the League of Women Voters of Hancock County, Indiana. Let me turn quickly to Donna. You're on Facebook. Tell us how to get to the page on Facebook.
You can go to League of Women Voters, Hancock County, Indiana. That's how you can find most of our information. If you want to become a member, you can link from our Facebook page to our website, or you can go directly to our website. And there it will say you will find a Join Me button. Select that. You can download your application, send it in, and you're a member, and someone will reach out and contact you.
Do you have to be a woman to join?
No. In fact, the co-president of the Indiana League is a male. And men have been fighting with us since the beginning. I don't know if you know this, but it took 70 years for women to get the right to vote. And it took 100% of men to vote to ratify it. So we've had a lot of men on our side for a long time, and we welcome any man who'd like to join us.
Okay. Just wanted to get that part out of the way before we continue. Before the break, we were talking about apportionment and gerrymandering, and really how it is the foundation of representative government, and what has happened in the last 10 or 15 years is that it's basically, the word that I was using was, it's been weaponized to establish supermajorities for one party in the Indiana legislature. You can hardly find a Democrat in the Senate, and it's more difficult, or almost as difficult, to find one in the House when you're walking through the State House. The effect of that has been that one party sort of controls everything. And so what the League of Women Voters, by virtue of advocating for a more fair redistricting idea, is to share power. Paulette, having been associated with the League for so long, this kind of flies in the face of what a lot of people in the party in power would support, right?
Well, I'm sure. But
how do you make the case to the people in power that they should surrender some of it? In other words.
well, as you probably recognize from watching some of the sessions, you know, both at the federal level and the state level, even though you have a majority, you know, your majority doesn't always agree, you know, because you have both spectrums at the end of that majority. So we think it would make governing much more fair. It would probably make governing that huge caucus a little easier. So to have, because I don't know if you remember, but back sometime in the 80s, there was actually a 50-50
I remember that, yes.
in our state house. They had to compromise. So I think, you know, in the end, the people won and they won. So, so having a supermajority is not always easy, and it may not even be in the best interest of the voter and the people of your state. So, but having a transparent, nonpartisan redistricting commission draw the maps would probably incentivize the voter. It might incentivize more people to run for office. Running for office is not easy. It's time consuming, it's expensive. As you know, Citizens United opened the doors with flooding money in on both sides. So I think there are a lot of things that could incentivize more people to vote and more people to run.
Just if they felt that their vote would make a difference
Yes.
in a race that might not be stacked against them because of
Exactly.
the way that their district is
Drawn.
is drawn.
Right.
And you know, the incumbents have advantages. I mean, at the national level, you know, there's the franking privilege. You know, they can send out lots of mail. Where if you're, you know, you're not the incumbent, it's expensive. And the same thing at the state level. You know, in the state house, they have a big free mail room. So, and as you probably notice, that mail begins to arrive a little more frequently just before an election, either the primary or the
Yeah.
general.
And I'm thinking, just as another example, the congressional districts, and that's probably where it's the craziest. You know, thinking about our own district, the 6th District of
Yes.
Indiana, which stretches from Muncie and Delaware County pretty much all the way to the Ohio.
To the Ohio River, yeah,
Ohio
from Muncie
River.
to Madison.
Yeah, and if you were fairly drawing a district that included, and Hancock County is kind of right smack in the middle of it, it probably wouldn't look quite so serpentine.
No, and
But it was drawn that way to favor one party,
yes,
and you know one person has been safely elected there ever since that was redrawn. I think in 2010 or 2012.
2011.
Yeah, and you know that person's no longer, you know, Luke Messer's no longer running in that race
Right.
because he lost in the Senate race, but that seat's going to stay safely Republican no matter who the candidate is for that. And as a result of that, the Democrats don't really mount much of a fight
No, it's
for that seat. So
Right.
we're
It's
kind of
ex-
cheated in a way of
Definitely.
yeah, we
having a
are.
robust
Right.
campaign discussion.
I mean, it would have made more sense for the 6th district to maybe have run east to west rather than north to south. I mean, at least you could have covered it in a day.
Yeah, and you have half a dozen media markets
Right.
In terms of where you spend your money to reach voters. Let me move on because there's some other stuff I wanted to ask you about. You know, I know voter engagement, as we're talking about, that's basically your primary mission. So how engaged would you say voters are nowadays?
Well, voters tend to get engaged mostly right before the election. I mean, in a lot of countries, you know, politics is year-round. It isn't just a season. And in the United States, it seems to be just a season. And the League of Women Voters, especially at the state level, I was in LaPorte County yesterday doing a board training, and they're gearing up for their local campaign, their voter service activities. They'll get out the vote, which includes debates. They'll be doing voter registration. They'll be having workshops, and so they're ready to go. And by Labor Day they'll be in full force. And other local leagues will be doing the same thing across the state to get voters out, to get them interested in participation.
Does LaPorte County have a lot of contested races this fall?
They do. They will be having a debate, and they're trying to have a congressional debate, which is being negotiated right now. But their local candidates always look forward and to participating in those debates.
And I asked that question as a way of following on to our local elections this fall. We don't have a lot of contested races.
We have a few contested races countywide, and that's what we'll be focusing on in terms of debates for Hancock County. Hancock County did better in our primary races this year than we did in the last midterms in 2014. We were up about 7 or 8 percentage points, so that's progress, but it's still a dismally low number of participants. We were at 25% ahead of the state, but nonetheless 25% of eligible voters participating is not the benchmark we're looking for. So if we can get fair political maps, we can get more people to the polls. I think it's just that simple.
Well, and as an example, so the winning candidate in, say, the sheriff's race this year, Brad Burkhardt, I think got 6,000 votes, something like that. And that's in a county with, how many registered voters do we have? 40,000, 50,000?
I think it's something about 47,000, I think was the last number that I saw.
So a dismally low number of votes for a winning candidate. Now, granted, that was a multi-candidate race, but you had a huge issue on that ballot. You had very well-known candidates running in several races. Judge, sheriff, and prosecutor were all heavily contested, and yet
we got 25% of turnout.
So, okay, so if having great candidates and a great number of candidates isn't enough to turn people out, then where do you turn next?
I don't think you can look at one race. I think you have to look at the long-term effect of what gerrymandering has done.
Okay.
And it has disenfranchised voters to the point that they don't feel they need to come out. They feel that it's a foregone conclusion. Now, happily, many don't, because they did come up to the polls, and we hope that our presence in the process will get more and more people to the polls to help them understand that if you don't like what you're seeing at the local, state, or national level, it's up to you, the individual, to do something about it. You have to participate in your government. And if they feel that their voice counts at the ballot box, they're more likely to participate in other ways as well, demanding accountability and transparency, that kind of thing.
And it's not hard to run for local office.
No, I mean, it isn't. And the league has, we've gone back and forth about this. Donna and I kind of have our little, because the league wants some basic accountability. We want people to come, we want them to vote, we want candidates to run, but we want candidates that we think would be considered legitimate candidates. We have this debate, is having a website just enough to be a candidate? What can you find out from a candidate just from having a website? We want candidates that are out there meeting the people, shaking hands, and expressing their own positions so that we know what we're voting for. And you may have noticed, I mean, the League of Women Voters has a website called 411, and it is hard to get candidates to put their positions up so that we know what they stand for. So it's an interesting time.
Indeed, because there's so much misinformation.
Yes.
And it's been weaponized in so many ways. We're starting to run out of time, so I want to give you guys a chance to talk just for a couple more seconds about when do you have your meetings? When are they scheduled?
Board meetings are scheduled the second Monday of every month. We have a meet and greet for 30 minutes before our board meeting. The board meeting is not open to the public, but we certainly want to meet you before we get started. It's a great time to join the league because our committees are just now forming and getting legs. And so it's a wonderful time to get your foot in the door, if you will, at the league and have your voice heard. And those committees will meet at their discretion.
Okay, and we're going to show the the website address here on our screen as we're stepping away from you. We're out of time. I appreciate Paulette and Donna joining me today for this wide-ranging discussion on the League of Women Voters of Hancock County. Congratulations on getting it started.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
Hope that you have a lot of success with it. I'm Dave Hill. We will be back again soon. Thanks for watching today. Take care.
Thank you.